For starting your morning with us today. My name is Caroline Jones. I am the chair of the legal division. I'll be moderating this morning's program. First, I want to take a second to thank our sponsor, Walters Kluwer Law and Business, for so generously giving us the money to do today's program, and also to thank the leadership and management division sponsors who can be found on the sign up in the front of the room. I'm just going to go ahead and introduce our speaker today. Eugene Giudice is a research librarian in the Chicago office of Latham & Watkins, an AmLaw 100 firm with offices worldwide. Before coming to Latham & Watkins, he worked for 4 years at Baker McKenzie. Early in his librarian career, he worked for the law firm of Schiff & Hardin in Chicago and the Loyola University Health Sciences Library. Eugene's experience also includes work as an instructor and course developer with Accenture, doing client-facing work, and as a computer programmer in the insurance and healthcare industries. He has a master's in library and information science from Dominican University and an MBA from DePaul University. In addition to his law library work, he is a past Grand Knight and former district deputy with the Knights of Columbus. His volunteer and charitable work includes being librarian in residence for the Italian American Veterans Museum in Stone Park and other charitable and civic organizations. He is a member of the Illinois chapter of the Special Libraries Association and the American Association of Law Libraries, the American Library Association, the Illinois Library Association, and the Chicago Association of Law Libraries, where he has authored a number of articles. So today, Eugene is going to present to you, and he would like this to be as much of a conversation as it can be and a learning experience. So if at any point you have a question, please raise your hand. There's a mic in the middle of the room for you to speak into, and hopefully we can all learn from each other and from Eugene. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Mr. Eugene Giudice.
Good morning. One of the things that I realized when doing a session at 11:45 is that I am probably the one thing that's keeping you from lunch. So, and given the nature and the name of this topic, that problem is probably exacerbated a little bit more. But today, I really want to honor the wisdom in this room. I'm looking around and there's well over, say, 100, 150, maybe 150 people in this room. And let's just take an average, say 5 years experience, 6 years experience, just as an average. That's over 500 years of aggregate library and information experience. 500 years. That, we're in the year 2014, that'll put us into the year 1514, okay? Think of the wisdom, think of the value that is to the organizations that we represent. I'm not here to tell you and stand here and say, well, folks, let me tell you how it is about outreach. That would be the height of arrogance, the height of hubris. What we do as librarians, what we do as information professionals, and the outreach that we attempt really, comes from within. So we're going to be talking about practical things, some practical things that you can try. This is not the most comprehensive list. You've probably done some things that have been successful. I'm going to show you some things that have worked for me and share my experience with you. And hopefully your experience will also add value to this discussion today. So, before we go, I do have to make some acknowledgments. I would like to thank my Heavenly Father for the safe trip here and for the opportunity to be with you. This is really a blessing for me to be here with you. I'd like to thank my firm, Latham & Watkins in Chicago, who has underwritten my attendance at this and has supported me in all my professional association activities in Chicago. The Special Libraries Association for their kind invitation to speak here today. The Chicago Library Community. How many of my Chicago colleagues do I have here? One? That's okay. My colleagues from Chicago really took me in when I was green, when I didn't know anything about librarianship. I am the librarian I am today because of their mentorship, because of their friendship, because of the fact that they took the time to befriend me when I was new to this profession. I would be also remiss if I did not acknowledge certain individuals who were very crucial in my development as a librarian. One of them is Dr. Logan Ludwig, formerly of the Loyola University Medical School Library, now at the Supreme Office of the Knights of Columbus. He gave me my first library job. Ms. Ruth Bridges, she gave me my first law library job. In fact, it was interesting because I had 2 part-time jobs. I worked part-time for Logan in the morning at Loyola, come home, hop a train, go downtown, do legal reference at Schiff Hardin with Ruth. Ms. Shelley Sandin, who is an SLA member, who I just happened to see a few minutes ago, she taught me everything I started to know about tax research and corporate and securities research. And then finally, Ms. Mary Clatt, who taught me about good customer service, good library outreach. Unfortunately, Mary's gone on to her eternal reward. And also my wife, my lovely wife here who's waving, my fan, she has been very supportive in all my librarian activities and other such harebrained activities that I get involved in. Trust me, my wife puts up with a lot. All right, now, since it's almost noon, I believe that everyone should have a little bit of physical activity. So, as we're talking today, I want you to remember this. Everybody stand up. I want you to take a look at the projector, the screen. Actually, I bought a laser printer for this event. And say after me, loudly, with conviction. I am the trustee of my profession. Again, I am the trustee of my profession. Okay, sit down, please. Thank you. All right. Now, when we talk about trustee, how many of my colleagues from the legal world are here? Okay. If you look in Black's Law Dictionary, 10th edition, available from Thomson Reuters, I just happen to buy a copy, it talks about someone who stands in a fiduciary responsibility for somebody else. Someone who stands in a fiduciary responsibility, a position of care. Who is that someone? Who is that someone that we as information professionals stand and care for? Who? Who do you think? This is a question. I'm looking for hands.
Patrons.
Patrons, okay. Who else?
Authors.
Authors. Who else?
Students.
Students. Oh, you're very close to what I'm thinking of. You're very close. Who else?
Future patrons.
Future patrons. We'll talk about that.
Our employers.
Our employers. I would like to submit this to you as one other individual that we stand in a fiduciary responsibility to. We stand in trusteeship of our profession for individuals who are going to be the future librarian and information specialists. People that are going to be answering patrons' questions, answering students' questions, long after we are dead and gone. And it's, we sometimes don't want to think of our own mortality, but there is going to come a time when someone will stand in our shoes. And I think about this in terms of every time I take a research request, and I know that we all have bad days. We all have days when we do not hit the mark, okay? And as the way I put it, sometimes I can really stink up a research request, all right? When I do that, when that happens, I sort of take it kind of personally, and I'm like not fit to live with that day. But because I think about, I have in some incalculable amount, in some incalculable way, made it harder for another librarian next day, next week, next year, next century. Okay? So every research request I get, to me, and this is like my own experience, is something of a special interaction that I have with that patron, with that customer. All right? And the reason we come here, the reason we spend our time and resources in meetings like this is because we want to be able to hit that ball 100% of the time. So as we're talking about outreach, as we're talking about really trying to provide the best service, extend ourselves, think about that as we are being trustees of the profession that we're in. So, I also want to call your attention. Why do you think I use the word the? Why the? Not a. Why the? What's the difference? Anybody?
It's definitive. It's a definitive article.
Right, it's the definitive article. I'm not just one of a bunch. I am the trustee. Thank you. All right. Now, as good librarians, and as we like to have, things defined, let's take a look at a definition. That's a mouthful. I wrote this, okay, so you can tell it was written by someone who works in the law. A set of demonstrable attitudes, etc. I'll give you a moment to read that. Now, take a look at that definition. What are the words or phrases that you think are the most important in that definition? What are the words and phrases that you think are the most important in that definition? Anybody, please.
Extend the presence.
Extend the presence, very good. What else?
Information center.
Information center, very good. Because why?
Because we're the people they come to.
Right, excellent. What else?
Attitude.
Attitude, what kind of attitude? Demonstrable. So it's not something we keep inside, it's something that we show. What else?
As many.
As many. We're looking for quantity here. Next, please.
More work.
More work. Yeah, okay, you're absolutely right. We're not doing this for laughs. We're not doing this, because, we want to be nice people, which we are, okay? We're doing it because we want more work. And I make no bones about it. When I talk to attorneys, and I tell them, every time a new matter comes in the door, I'm going to get a piece of that action. Whether it's, find me an SEC filing, find me an article. So when there's new matters coming in, I say, "Latazalum." I'm glad, Other things. I'm sorry? Concrete activities, right. So we're not talking about let's all, sit and talk about, do, navel gazing. We want to do practical things because we're practical people. Other things.
Constituency groups.
Constituency groups, right, because we need to think about, we have who we think are our constituencies, but who else? Who else? Well, funnily enough, those are some of the very things that I talked about, or I thought about, were the most important things in that slide. Now, I want to call your attention, we talk about people who make use of our services, okay? Some places calls them patrons, some calls them clients, some calls them users. I want to call your attention to an article that came out in the AALL Spectrum in September, October of 2013. It was written by Carolyn Otolenghi, and it's called "A Customer is a Patron is a Client, but Not Really." And it talks about the importance of language and what we call things or people, for want of a better word. And she states here, and I thought this was the key idea out of the piece, quote, "I suggest that the most important outcome of naming our users is not what that name means to us. The most important outcome is what each name causes us to expect from our users. We use language, and then we have a certain expectation from using that sort of language." It's a really good article. I commend it to you. Just something to think about, grist for the mill, and food for thought. Now, we talk a lot about extending ourselves. We talk a lot about having a presence, all right? The gentleman in the back, I want to commend him because he talks about more work. Library outreach is a tool, not the tool, for organizational survival. Okay? Like I said, we're doing this because we want more work to come in. Now, I am I don't like to think of myself as an idealist, totally. How many of you have been unemployed? Okay. And so have I include myself in that. We can do everything right. We can have the greatest outreach in the world. We can be meeting with people constantly, better understanding their needs. But there's always the fact that sometimes a business decision is made, positions get outsourced. That's what happened to me at my last job. I wasn't a librarian then. I didn't, see the light and realize my true calling, my job got offshore to the Philippines, all right? And I was unemployed for 5 years. What I did during those 5 years, that's for another discussion. But we can do everything right. So I'm not offering you a guarantee. I'm not offering you a guarantee that library outreach is going to be the absolute best thing, and you'll keep your job, and you'll retire with a defined benefit pension, and it'll be all sweetness and light. But I submit to you this: wouldn't you rather go down fighting? I mean, and that might sound like a crass way of putting it, but if there's going to be a fight for our job, we may not be standing up, but by gum, we're going to finish it. We're going to finish it. And if it happens, when it happens, I hope it doesn't happen, you will sleep the sleep of the just, I would say, because in your mind, you'll say, I did everything I could. All right? But we don't want to dwell on that fact. We want to acknowledge the reality of it, but we don't want to dwell on it. So, how did I get so interested, let's put it that way, interested, in a slight way, about library outreach? Well, about 10,000 years ago, when I was a young librarian, and I was a member of the Medical Library Association, I had the opportunity to be on a jury for the Medical Library Association Journal, and it was in 2007. And so what they do on these juries, I don't know, has anyone ever sat on a jury for papers before? Okay. What you do is you're given a set of papers to read, and you say, these are the candidates for best paper of the year. Which one do you think? And I remember the moment I was reading this, I was up at the American Club in Kohler, Wisconsin, a very nice place, by the way, if you ever get a chance to go. And I'm looking at the fireplace and relaxing in the spa, and I pulled out this article called Decree, and you can see the citation there. And it struck me like a thunderbolt, the fact that, here it says, timely dissemination of results of an online literature review resulting in shortened LOS, length of stay, and lower hospital charges. So what was happening is they did a study, the authors of this paper did a study where librarians were present at morning report in a hospital. How many of my colleagues from the medical world are here? Anybody? Okay, what's morning report?
Well, in the UK, so I think it's slightly different, but it's, all the junior doctors get together and sort of report on what's going on in the ward.
Exactly, where the physicians meet and they talk about the cases that have presented over the period since the last morning report. There was a short-lived show on one of the stations called Room 311. And it was about this Martinet doctor who, he sits down, much like Caroline is sitting, with a glass of water and, grills the doctors on their cases. Something like that. All right. But they would have a librarian present. She would then go, or he would then go, and do research in the medical literature, report back, present that to the physicians, and those types of opportunities gave timely dissemination of results and resulted in lower hospital charges and length of stay. I mean, this is, magical may not be the right word, but this is serious stuff. We're taking into the work that we do, the work that my medical librarian colleagues do, that's taken to the bedside. That's helping people get out of the hospital. I mean, there are some great hospitals, all over the world, but I mean, let's face it, you'd rather be out than in, okay? You'd rather pay $5 as opposed to $15, all right? This is the impact that librarians and information professionals can have. So, that's what really led me on this path of, what really helps, what really makes our profession different, what really is valuable to the employers, to the people that are paying our salaries. The second thing is this article. Just happens to be written by me. And this is where I got the idea for this session. actually, where some folks encouraged me to say you should present in Vancouver on this topic. And there's the citation there. And then again, it hits all the points that we've talked about so far. We've talked about increase the amount of work flowing to the library, demonstrate increased value, etc. Okay? Demonstrate the value of library and professional law librarians. Okay? Professional librarians, not as much as people, not somebody with Google. All right? As much, and I use Google all the time. I don't want to deprecate Google. All right? But we have been trained to understand and learn about the sources, and learn what's valuable, and learn what's been vetted. I see one of my friends from BNA is here, and we've talked about these sorts of things. What's valuable? What's been vetted? As opposed to just grabbing press releases and sort of bundling them together, but really having a presence and having people understand the beats, the news beats that they cover. So, I know you've all been waiting for this, the big reveal, right? We've been sort of laying the groundwork. So you're probably saying, okay, what is this about this Italian beef sandwich? All right? You're waiting with bated breath for this. All right. So, since I only have one of my Chicago, has anyone had a real Italian beef sandwich? How many real Italian beef? All right, that's excellent. I love it. All right, now, do not confuse an Italian beef sandwich with something called a French dip. This is not what we're talking about. All right. There is a Wikipedia page for Italian beef. You can look at it on your own. It's thinly sliced beef, and it's a cheap cut of meat. And I'll tell you why it's a cheap cut of meat. French bread. If you're in Chicago, ganella is better. It's my own personal bias. Peppers, sweet or hot. And then the juice. Now, what is this juice? Well, what you do is you take this cheap cut of meat, and it really came out of Chicago, the Italian beef sandwich. You take this cheap cut of meat, and you cook it in sort of a savory juice. You slice it thin, and you put it on the ganella bread. Now, years ago in the Depression, when everyone was broke, much like today, people had what they call the peanut weddings, okay? Where you could serve sandwiches like this. You get a decent sized hunk of beef, and you could extend it. And people sometimes would say, man, I don't want the beef, just give me the bread and I'll dip it in the juice. Now, eating an Italian beef sandwich is an interesting experience. One of the things, you go to any Italian beef stand in Chicago, and they will ask you, juicy or not? Which means you take the bread and you dunk it in the juice. Now, some people, I like it a little bit on the dry side. Some people like it sopping. So what you have to do, now this is a visual, to eat the Italian beef sandwich, you have to assume the position of what is called the Chicago spread. The Chicago spread goes like this. Say you're at a counter about this high. You have to sort of stand like this and eat it because the juice will get all over your front. All right? So this is called the Chicago spread. Now, we call it a couple of different things. In Chicago, it's also called the Italian beef sandwich, or the Italian beef sandwich, or if you're like where I come from in Melrose Park, which is it used to be full of Italians, you would say un bella sandwich. All right? So, with that, this is what it looks like when it's cooking. All right. Okay, now you're probably saying, okay, get to the point, get to the point. This, the beef, the meat, this is what the heart of what we do as librarians, okay? This is our bibliographic knowledge, our ability to do search, our understanding of the sources in our respective discipline. Without that, forget it, write it off, just like you won't have a sandwich. Write it off, forget it. Outreach is the juice. That adds flavor, that adds spice, that adds zest to our library, our professionalism. Okay? Otherwise, without the juice, you just have a nice cheap cut of meat that you roast for 3 hours and that's about it. Right? This is what adds the spice, the juice. I'm trying to figure out what sort of allegory I can make for the peppers, but I haven't come up with one yet. All right? So, now, just like in your libraries, in your environments, we all do things a little differently. In Chicago, you can go to quite a few beef joints. all right? And things change. For example, when I grew up in Melrose Park, and there's this place called Johnny's. Johnny's Beefs on North Avenue in Elmwood Park. And that was like the be-all and end-all, because you get the Italian beef, you get the Italian lemonades with the wedge of lemon. It was great. Well, you know, things changed. Johnny, I think Johnny's now in the cemetery. He sold out. They've gone cheap. You don't get as much beef in the sandwich. Now I'm a Jay's guy, okay? I mean, I can eat that all day. And Al's, well, Al's a little more on the corporate side, so is Border Beef. Al's used to be a single stand. Now he's got places all over town. Mr. Beef, well, that's kind of the downtown place if you want Italian beefs, all right? Just as we do things differently in our respective libraries, in our respective information centers, you can get an Italian beef at any of these places, but it's got to taste different, okay? It's not for us as librarians to judge other people's outreach. If you're doing something in your library or an information center that's working for you, salud, God bless, go and do, all right? Again, that's why we're here, because hopefully we'll hear what other people are doing, all right? So, now let's get to the practical things. The first thing, I think, in good outreach is really to look inside. Inside ourselves, inside our respective environments. Do we create a welcoming environment for people to come in? Now, some of that is a function of how whatever space that we have is laid out. And when I mean space, I don't mean necessarily library space, because we all know libraries are changing. Physical footprints of libraries are shrinking, okay? But you have it, we all sit someplace. How do we make that a welcoming and inviting place? Now, I understand that there are constraints, you know, with buildings that we live in and work in. Some of them are older, some of them are newer, some of them are more modern, you know, some of them have different, you know, thoughts of design. But how do we make it a welcoming environment? So let's talk about, first off, how do we interact with people? Do we talk to folks, and this, I include myself with this, so I'm not making an indictment on anybody. I have to remind myself every day, all of these things. At the water cooler, at the coffee machine, do we engage our colleagues? Do we talk to them in the elevator? How do we greet them when they walk into our space? Now, for me, I sort of follow a formula, and I don't want to make it sound like it's robotic, but it's something that's always top of mind. It's always good morning, good afternoon, how are you doing? How was your fill-in-the-blank weekend, evening? I work in the law, so I center everything. How is your practice? And especially if it's a partner, because the partnership in the large law firms and the small ones, they own so it's like their business. So not only do I ask, I say, how's your business? Because it tells them that I care about their business, their ability to generate revenue, because I'm honest with them. I say, when you get a new matter in, I'm going to get a piece of that action. You're going to need something, you're going to want some information. You know, so the more matters you bring in, the more happier I am. If the firm makes money, that gives, you know, that's incentive for me, because it gives me opportunities to serve. It gives me opportunities to practice my craft, which is really what we're all about. All right? So I always say good morning, good afternoon. You know, how are you? If I happen to know that if I see them with a wheelie bag, how was your trip? Was it for business or for pleasure? If it was business, did you visit the client? Was it successful? I don't get too much detail, simply because if I'm in a public area, and again, if I work in the law, so let's say they went to go to see client X to do a deposition, there might be some other people listening who aren't allowed to be privy to those because of ethics walls and that sort of thing. So I'll say, did it go well? That's all you ask. Did it go well? And or if they're in a suit. If I see, as we know, a lot of offices are going business casual. If I see someone in a suit, I say, chances are they're going to court. So I'll say, are you headed to court today? Yes. Good luck. And if I see them later in the day, how did it go? Did it go well? Sometimes they'll say, oh, it was just a status hearing, or and they'll share it to the extent that they're comfortable. But it shows that we care, that we are interested in them, in that they are successful. Do we hand deliver materials? I have to remind myself to do this all the time, okay? Because things are becoming more electronic, it's easy. I mean, it is easier to email. No problem. I will gladly concede that. It is easier to, but do we also take the opportunity to hand deliver something, to explain how we came up with something? All right. Email is great. It is great for. Sometimes I'll do both, and then it's an opportunity to explain how I came up with something. Do we smile and make eye contact? Things we learned in high school speech class. Do we smile? Do we make eye contact? Now, a lot of these things, by our nature, a lot of these are dictated by nature and temperament. And I understand that. Some people are more outgoing, they can speak more. Some people like me are very shy. You can obviously tell I'm very shy. Ask anybody in Chicago how shy Eugene is and they'll tell you. All right? But those little things that show we care. Do we knock on doors? I have an office full of bags from various vendors. They're in my office. I have to get rid of them. I've been knocking on associates' doors, saying, here's a bag from vendor X, and there's the pricing guide. But it gives me permission to say, how's your practice? I know you don't use this service very often. It's okay to acknowledge it. Like, I work with a lot of corporate and securities folks who do mergers and acquisitions type of work. They don't use Lexis or Westlaw a lot, but that's okay. But the one time they need it, they're gonna need it, okay? And they'll have the pricing guide, or they'll know, Eugene, I don't use it very often. Can you help me? Question? Or did I see a hand go up? They'll know where to come. They'll know where to come. Okay? They'll say, I'll call Eugene. I'll tell you a story. I remember like it was yesterday. I was sitting in a practice group meeting at my previous firm, and one of my vendors came in to give a presentation to the associate, or to this practice group. And the gentleman, he's a personal friend of mine, he's a very nice guy. He said, where do you go for this sort of information? Do you use the tool? Do you use other tools? And one of them says, oh, no, we just call Eugene. We just call Eugene. I remember that, and that's considered high praise. They trust me. They know that Eugene will go to the ends of the earth, and maybe that's a bit much, but he will bust his chops to get you what you need. Okay? And I know in some environments, budgets are tight and you can't have all the resources. I was at one environment where that was the case, where we didn't have all the resources that I have now. At my current place, it's like an embarrassment of riches. So I would beg, borrow, and steal, creatively acquire things. Of course, abiding by all the copyright and trademark protection laws in the breach. Anyway, are we curious about our clients both inside and outside the office? How many times have you gone into an office of one of your colleagues, of someone who uses your services, or maybe doesn't, and you'll see pictures of family, pictures of, things. There's one gentleman that he doesn't use library services a lot because his nature of his practice doesn't. But I know he likes the golf. So every Monday morning, like during the fall, spring, summer, and maybe even the winter, I'll say, did you get out with the sticks? How did you make out with the sticks? He says, oh, Eugene, I went out 3 times this weekend, and it's like, you create a little buzz. I happened to be in his office, and I noticed pictures of his child on the shelf in the performance outfit for Irish step dancing. How many of you know about Irish step dancing? Okay, so you're all in the cult. Like my sister, and my niece is in it. This, nice dark-haired Olivia Rousey, very Italian name, does the Irish step dance with the curls and everything. It's beautiful. It's tremendous. But I call it the cult. So I was able to say, oh yeah, my niece does this. Where does your daughter go to school? My niece goes to school here. Are they going to the thing in Ohio? Blah 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 blah. Okay. You create human understanding between individuals. All right. I'm not a sporty kind of a guy. I've only recently started to get into hockey. And that's because, like in hockey, there's no messing around. There's no halftime show, there's no pregame show, there's no postgame show, there's no, they get right to the beatdown, which is a good thing. So now it's like, oh, did you see the game last night? It might seem contrived, but it's like, hey, it's an opportunity, and that's what we're all looking for, is an opportunity. Do we show something of ourselves? Do we show something of ourselves in our environment, when we're talking to people? Do we reveal things? And I'll talk about that in a minute. And as I said, do we create an excuse? Or maybe excuse is not the right word. Maybe permission is a better word. Do we create a permission to talk to somebody? So let's talk a little bit about how we do, we'll talk a little bit about how we do this, but I also want to still look inside. I want to look inside just for a little while. At my office, we went through some training called Insights training. And what it is, you answer a bunch of questions and it maps your communication style. All right? So this is the color wheel that comes out of, if you go to insights.com, the Insights Discovery Profile. That's the test you take. It's a lot like Myers-Briggs. How many have done Myers-Briggs? Okay, everyone's done Myers-Briggs. Can you believe it? Are you surprised? It says I'm an extrovert. Are you surprised? I was very surprised at that. So anyway, but this is a lot like Myers, but this was more narrowly focused on communication style of communicating. So you've got, the cool blue, and the person is cautious, precise, deliberate, earth green, etc. So you take this test, and you come up with a set of colors. It tells you what is your dominant communicating style. Okay? Now, everyone has all of these, but there are certain ones that are more dominant in us than others. So in our firm, what we call it is having your colors done. So they give you these blocks, and the first time I saw it, I hadn't had my colors done. I saw it on my boss's desk. Well, eventually we all did. So I lead with yellow, and the key phrase for yellow is involve me. So if you and I are communicating, involve me in what's going on. Don't just, sort of like what I'm sort of doing now, but try to involve me, okay? The next one is give me details. I like to know the meat of it, the insides of it. And then, show me you care. Let's all get nice, warm, and fuzzy. And the last one is be brief, be bright, and be gone, okay? Now, we all have all of these, but people lead with different ones. Now, what is the benefit? What is the benefit of having this prominently displayed in my office? I have these blocks and everyone sees them as they're coming in. What's the value of that? Anybody, ideas? Why do you think that's a good thing? Please.
They know how to approach you.
I'm sorry?
They know how to approach you.
Exactly. People know what Eugene's communication style is, okay? So if someone comes in, it's like, oh, let's involve him. Let's make him feel part of what we're doing, because he'll eat that up, okay? What else? Please.
It's a talking point. If someone doesn't know about it, they want to ask you what it is.
You're good. Very good. Because not everybody in my firm had done this. In fact, my firm moved from Willis Tower to 330 North Wabash. It's the IBM, in Chicago we call it the old IBM building, designed by Mies van der Rohe, blah, blah, blah. All right? We had in my old space, we had a physical reference desk. Someone would man the reference desk. And I put that out there, and not everybody, they say, Eugene, what's with the Lego blocks? But it gave people permission. It gave people the opportunity to say, what's this all about? Okay? Now, turn it around. If I know this is my style, everybody else has their own style. There's an attorney that is in my office, and she's not unpleasant. Okay, you see where this is going. She's not unpleasant. That's a ringing endorsement. But she can be a bit terse, a bit, See, it took my boss to say, Eugene, you realize that so-and-so, this is her style. Be brief, be bright. It's not nasty. She's just be brief, be bright, and be gone. Not that she's nasty, that's her style. So now I know that, and so when she is a little terse with me, it's like I don't take it personally. It's like she's not insulted. It's like she just be brief, be bright, and be gone. All right. In addition, this Insights tool, it will say if you are, like, for example, I lead with this color, but I'm talking to this type of a person, this is what you should try, or these are the things you should try. Or when you are in a heightened state of excitement or agitation, and you're this type, this is how you can counteract it. It's an interesting tool. I'm not making a formal endorsement, but it's something to think about. It's one more thing. If we know ourselves better, we can better outreach to others. Because the questions that we ask about ourselves, the things that we discover about ourselves, probably everybody else is asking the same questions about themselves. Just some food for thought or grist for the mill. Now, one of the things I want to call your attention to, again, at a practical level, we'll try to talk about practical things, and this has become famous in Latham and Watkins, at least in the Chicago office. It is renowned all over the world. Yeah, okay. The candy jar. In my previous library space, we actually had this on the reference desk. We would partner with our vendors. How many of my vendor folks do I have here? How many vendors? Outstanding. They would pony up dough, and I would go and I watch the sales at Target. Oh, by the way, the two best days to buy candy at Target are, what are the two best days to buy candy at Target? After Thanksgiving, after Valentine's Day, and after Halloween. In fact, there was a line, I kid you not, I did it this year. There was a lineup outside of Target like a half hour before it opened on the day after Halloween. And the minute that door opened, it was like we all made a beeline to the candy section. All right? So, two things I want to call your attention about the candy jar. First off is this little sign, okay? In Chicago, one of the things in our library community that if you come visit and talk to librarians in Chicago and you ask them about this Eugene guy, he'll say, Eugene, oh, he's got a guy for everything. You need something, talk to Eugene, he's got a guy. I've got a guy that makes signs. He works in plaques and trophies and that kind of stuff, and he's a very fine fellow. So he makes me this little sign that says, it reads, have a piece of candy and get your legal research questions answered. All right? Now, I was lucky because where the reference desk sat was right on it was the direct route to the restrooms. And it's okay, I'll take advantage of that. And people would pass by, some would stop and have a piece of candy. But guess what? What happens the minute they open that candy jar? What happens?
You hear them.
Well, no, I was sitting right there. I do hear them. I'm sitting right there. What does it give me? It gives me it gives me the permission. They take the piece of cake, even if they don't have a legal research, a question to ask me. It's, good morning, how are you? Take a piece of candy. And then they say, well, I don't have anything to say. I feel guilty, I don't have anything to say. That's okay. But one day you will. All right? And I take, in fact, in our library orientation, the last slide in that slide deck, it states, the most important thing to remember about the library is we have candy. Summer associates. For my colleagues who don't work in the law, what summer associates are, they are second-year law students that are given a practical trying out in the law firms. It's a unique way of hiring people, but that's a whole other conversation. They love the candy jar. They just love the candy jar. In fact, one year, I thought I'd be real generous with the summers. I went to Costco and got the full-size Milky Ways and the full-size Starburst. And I would keep them on the shelf. And I would say, come, Mom, Mom's feeding me. Come, eat. And then I said, as they were leaving, I said, not a lot of people came and had the candy. They said, Eugene, don't you understand? I go, obviously I don't. They said, people feel guilty taking a full-size Milky Way. They'll take a midget one, and they might take 4 or 5, but which is probably bigger than the full size, but they feel guilty taking the full size. And you know, me, I'm you know, as you can obviously tell, I don't miss too many meals, and I believe in, you know, one is good, two is better. So now we have it with the smaller size candies in a very nice apothecary jar. And then the vendor gets a little sign, candy seed courtesy of, is anyone from Reprint's desk here? Tony's not here? Oh, hi. Is Tony here today?
No, we work with them.
Oh, yeah, yeah, they're great folks. Lexus has a sign, Westlaw has a sign, Reprint's desk has a sign, B&A has a sign. You know, anybody who's willing to pony up the 80 bucks gets a sign. All right. Okay. So that's how we make a welcoming sort of external space for our customers. What about our own personal space, our own office? How many of you actually have an office or something that like resembles an office? Okay, not everyone does. Some people work in a cube, but these are some things you can do even if you work in, you know, cube heaven. This is my bookshelf. Okay, doesn't that look distinguished? These are things that I like to keep handy, on hand, because you never know in a pinch. I love to be the. I tell everyone, I don't want to be the guy. I want to be the guy that the guy goes to. All right. So I keep these things on my bookshelf, and in a pinch, someone can come and make use of them. I mentioned blacks. I'll talk about blacks just in a moment. But I use this as a selling point with my associates, with my summers, with my first years. If something's not on the shelf, come and see me. I might have a copy of it handy that I can lend you. And I'm more than happy to, I mean, of course, it's stamped with my name and address on it, so you know where you got it from. But, you know, these little things that make for a welcoming environment. I'm going to tell you a story about blacks. This is I recently purchased the 10th edition. How many of you have Black's Law Dictionary in print? Okay, it is a very big book. Okay, now on a Monday morning, as I said, our office has moved really across the downtown area, so it's a good 20-minute hike from the train station that I get off to my office. And you know, being health conscious because I have all that candy laying around, I walk to the office, and so I schlepped that Blacks along with a bunch of other things halfway across the loop. Wouldn't you know it? The very next day, I had a chance to use it because I was working with a summer associate, and there was some word, and it was in tax. And if anybody knows anything about the tax code, it was not written to be read by humans. So we had to look up this word, and it was like I had the thing. It was like I was the guy, and I had the thing right there. So that's my story about blacks. One of the things that I'm especially sort of pleased with is this book. And this may sound hokey, but again, hokey sometimes creates a talking point. That's what we're looking for here. This is Erskine May's Parliamentary Practice. This is the book of rules that is used in the British House of Commons for their rules of procedure, basically. I happened to get this at a conference, and I was going through when I was younger in the profession, they say, Eugene, make sure you go through the exhibition hall the last day of the conference, and because they don't want to schlep all this stuff back, so sometimes you can get, free stuff, which is one of Eugene's, 3 rules of life. The first one being free is good. So I saw this, I said, oh, that's pretty cool. She said, you want it? I go, yeah, I'll take it. So, okay, what am I going to do with Erskine May? So anyways, does anyone watch, how many C-SPAN junkies do I have in here? Anybody? I'm the only one? Okay. Well, anyways, there was a previous Speaker of the House. Her name is Betty Boothroyd. She's now Baroness Boothroyd. And I got autographs. In fact, I got her autograph here, and I got the current Speaker's autograph here, and I got the Librarian of the House of Commons autograph here. So, people say, well, Eugene, what's that? I pull it off the shelf, I show them the autographs, okay, fine, it's hokey. I understand this. But, I'm a book nerd. I understand this. I embrace my nerdness, okay? But it gives people a chance to talk about things, all right? In addition, we have new space, and on the back wall is this big white space. So now I have these. I'm a collector of military crests and things like that, And so whenever I would go to a military museum, I would get the crest of the regiment or the division, and now I have a place to hang it up. Actually, quite artfully done. I did that all myself. I tell you, command strips from 3M are the greatest thing since sliced bread. I also have my Knights of Columbus emblem there, and they ask me about that. You know, I wear a tie bar. I always have the emblem of the order. I always have the emblem of the order on. My brother Knights will appreciate that. But again, it creates another a talking point. One of the things, and all these are little stories that people, you know, that I've experienced. You've probably experienced the same thing, and it's all about adding richness to the library experience. I joined Toastmasters a while ago, and one of the first things I was taught in Toastmasters is you give a speech, you tell a story. Tell it from your own experience. And this really, you know, tells about who we are. So, creating the welcoming environment was one of the key things about good outreach. Now, let's talk about, there we go. Who is the customer? Who is the customer, client, user, patron, fill in, whatever word you want to use. We're going to use customer just for the moment. They're the obvious ones, okay? In the law firms, it's the attorneys who are our clients, customers, users. They're in the medical field, or maybe pharmaceutical, it's the doctors. In the academic world, it's faculty and students, or other scientists if you're working in sort of the chemical, biomedical world. If you're working in a consulting house like I used to, it's the people going out and doing client-facing. So those are the obvious customers, all right? But what about the ones that I call like the not-so-obvious? If you make friends, for want of a better word, with the not-so-obvious, okay, it may lead you to the obvious. For example, other staff members. I've been fortunate enough to have built relationships in my law firm with the folks in BD, business development. These are the folks that aid the attorneys in going out and pitching business. Accounting, they're helpful to have, and I'll tell you a story about my relationship with accounting. Contract employees, okay? How many of you have loose leaf filers at your place of work, okay? Loose leaf filers are great. You know why? A couple of reasons. We have this one gentleman who used to go into the attorney's offices and like pick up the standard federal tax reporter and do the loose leaf filings. He could go in there. I mean, it's like you got to set another set of eyes in that attorney's office. Not to be nosy, but you know, you learn what the preferences are. He might send a message that, oh, when you go to the library, tell him I need this or something. Make friends with the contract employees. Secretaries. Tell you a story about a secretary. One of the secretaries on my new floor, or in my new space on the new floor, I'm not near a lot of the people that I saw in my old space. So I have a chance. It's an opportunity. I have a chance to make new friends. One of the secretaries needed to get her notary commission renewed. Well, she happened to stop by my desk, and on my desk there is a nameplate: Eugene Michael Giudice, research librarian, notary public. She says, "Oh, I didn't know you were a notary." "Oh yeah, I'm on the list for office notary." She called me up. She says, "Eugene, can you notarize my renewal because I'm in a pinch. We're done." Now, I asked her. I said, "Well, I forgot. Who do you support? Which of the attorneys you support?" And she said, "So and so and so and so and so and so and so." Well, if ever they need things from the library, let me know. I've now created a new friend or a new ally who will advocate for the library. It's not all about outreach. Is not about only us going out and doing it and talking to people. It's us creating bridges and alliances with people who will also talk on our behalf and help us bring work in. All right. Let me tell you the story about my relationship with accounting. It's very good, by the way. This isn't like a horror story. Sometimes I'll get a reference request. They'll say, "Eugene, do we have a membership to X organization?" Okay, like the American Illinois Bar Association or some society of corporate secretaries. I now know. Call Marianne in accounting because she can look in to see who the firm has paid, if the firm has ever paid any money to that on behalf of somebody. Like the firm paid for so-and-so's membership. All right? So when I get those kind of questions, and when she sees the email from me, she knows what it's about. Oh, Eugene's gotten a reference request or a research request from somebody, and this is why he's asking. It's not because I'm nosy, right? And plus, it also helps that my friend Marianne in accounting, she loves Bazooka bubblegum. So I keep it. I have it on hand for her and another attorney. I say, I got to get some fresh Bazooka. And oh yeah, great. During the move, I'll tell you about the move in a minute. But we're creating alliances. We're creating allies. We're making friends within our organization, which is just so important. Now, one of the things I stress is about be seen. Be seen in your organizations. Be seen. Not only do you need to be seen, you need to be seen being seen. So be seen and make sure people know that you're doing it. Okay? So, what are some of the ways we can do that? Again, you have different environments, you have different things going on, but here are some examples that have worked for me and things that I've found. Diversity initiatives. Now, I've been around the horn in corporate America a little bit, and how many of you have gone to diversity training? Okay, how many of you found any value out of it? Yeah, I'm seeing some lukewarm. A lot of it all ends up being, let's all hold hands and sing Kumbaya. All right? When I was at my previous law firm, we had a speaker come in, and she made a very provocative statement. She said that Caucasian people have a right to speak about race, and straight people have a right to speak about sexuality. And it was, to me, a revelation, because up until that time, it's like, I'm a white Christian male. Okay, I'm about as undiverse as you get. But I have a place at the table. So then I approached the head of our diversity initiative, and I said, when someone, I forgot her name, okay, my bad. She said this, and it made me think about this. And I said, I would like to get more involved with diversity. And I went even further. And I was very straight up with her, and I said, Lisa, let me tell you a little bit about myself. When I was growing up, where I grew up, we had names for people of color, we said them in Italian, and they probably weren't very nice. Not probably, they weren't very nice. We had names for gay people, we said them in Italian, and they weren't very nice. So if we're going to take this seriously, and it isn't going to be just let's hold hands and sing Kumbaya, the change has got to come from within. Just like I'm convinced that outreach has to come from within. It can't be a check the box sort of initiative. I was reading somewhere from the Naval Institute, and they were talking about mentorship and how important in the military career mentorship is. And that some of the services, they have formal mentoring programs. And it becomes just a check the box out of opportunity. Outreach for us cannot be just a check the box opportunity. And I'm probably going to break this thing because I get passionate about it, because it's about our survival as a profession. It's about us being able to add value. If we don't do it, if we don't advocate for ourselves, and I know it's hard for some of us because by nature, we're librarians, we're information people, we're not, we're not Earl Scheib, okay? We are, what did I say at the beginning? What are we? We are the trustees of the librarians and information professionals that are going to come after us. All right, so I'm sorry, I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. Diversity. So I got involved with diversity. I was an official member of the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgendered affinity group. And not only that, every quarter, someone would be responsible for getting the lunch and arranging the room and keeping the agenda and some of that. I said, well, I'm learning about this community, but I can do that sort of thing. I know about keeping minutes and keeping agenda, and I can do lunch and all that stuff. So I do it the first month, and I get, the nice lunch, and I do it the second month. And the person who got me involved in this, he said, you're good at keeping us on track, on the agenda. You want to do this regular? Sure, no problem. So I was the official, not the chairman, but like the main facilitator of the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender affinity group. And I'm none of those things. Not that there's anything wrong with any of those things, but and I do good lunch. I think that was the thing, you know. I mean, if you look at me, I don't miss too many meals. And do we have any people from human resources or marketing here? Okay, good, because I told him, I said, frankly, you don't want the skinny people out of, you know, marketing and human resources to get you lunch. You want someone, you know, I used to get them beef sandwiches, burgers. I mean, it's like, oh yeah, this is great, you know. I mean, it was cardiac on a plate, but I mean, it was good. So, pro bono initiatives in the law in Illinois, and I'm pretty sure it's the same throughout all the different states. You have to give a certain amount of hours to pro bono, for free services to the legal services. All right. I'll tell you a story. One of my attorneys needed a notary, and she was in a pinch. And this secretary, the one I told you about before, she called me. She said, Eugene, so-and-so is going to be needing a notary, but I'm going to be, you know, away or something. Can she call you? Oh, yeah. I said, text me and I'll go right away. Well, the time came and she called. I went down with my seal. She told me the story of this pro bono case she was working on. It was a young man trying to claim asylum in the U.S. And asylum cases are very easy for big law firms to take on, because what happens is we don't get conflicted out. Like if it's something, a public advocacy group going up against some company, we might work with that company in some fashion and we get what they call conflicted out. You can't represent. So asylum cases are real easy because, you know, it's some literally poor slob who's trying to get out of some hellhole that he's trying to come to America. So she told me the story of this asylum seeker. And so, you know, this person, even though I was just there to notarize some documents, I got personally invested in it. You know, we said prayers. I remembered them constantly. I would ask, when's the hearing? And right before, it was like last Friday was the hearing, and I saw her Monday, this past Monday, and I said, how did it go? And she said, it was tough, and when there's a continuance, I said, well, don't worry, it'll work out. I got personally invested. I showed that I cared. And there are opportunities like that in every organization. Community service opportunities. We have a mentoring program with one of our partners. One of our partners is involved in something called Do the Right Thing, right as in writing, and gets inner city youth involved in writing, performance, and then they give them internships in firms. And so I'm involved. I read some of the essays that these kids write. I help get prizes for the goodie bags. Firm-sponsored outside events. Go to the holiday party, please. And my firm does nice holiday parties. I mean, it's rule number 2: never refuse a free meal. I mean, we've gone. I mean, I'm not free food and drink. I'm there. But it bears repeating. Go to your firm-sponsored events. The picnic, the whatever. Free eats is always a good thing. Training events. I'm on the TASE. I work with TASE, which is our attorney training. So if you have opportunities to do that, please avail yourselves of them. And we talk about library resources, doing research. And in fact, we're going to be changing the TASE. We used to do, sort of a stand-up spiel like this. Now, my boss said, maybe we'll do more of a panel discussion because Eugene, I know you can moderate a panel. Or at least you think you can. Group meetings, practice group meetings. In the firms we have practice groups. There's a tax practice group, a corporate securities practice group, these different practice groups. In your organizations, there are different practice groups. Get involved. I mean, it's as close as you can get to embedded librarianship as you can. Fitness initiatives. I look like I could do with a fitness initiative. I was on this year's committee for the spring challenge, where we count everybody's steps and go show people how to use the pedometer. Okay, fine. It's a little hokey, but you get to meet people. You get, I work with the guys from HR, with a couple of secretaries. One of the first years was on the committee, so I got to work with folks. Particular individual projects or certain databases. I'm on the office liaison for something called BoardX, which is, you enter someone's name, you find out who in the firm has relationships. So I get to partner with somebody from BD, Business Development, and find out help, train other attorneys, other secretaries how to use that. Mentoring opportunities. The project I told you about, the Do the Right Thing, one of the things is we bring these young people in for a paid internship with our firm, and I, along with others, we take them to lunch. I arrange for them to meet individuals, other professionals, to see, what is it like to work in a law firm? What is it like to be an elected official? That sort of thing. And then notary services. I mean, I'm a notary public, so I let people avail myself of those services. Now, this past spring, we had a rather unique opportunity at Latham & Watkins in the Chicago office because we had moving day. We were actually moving physically from our space in the Willis Tower to this newly purpose-built facility in Chicago. And I was on the move team. Our head of facilities, they said, Eugene, would you like to be on the move team? I said, if my boss is on board, I'm on board. So for a whole week, I got to wear this very fashionable and very highly colorful orange shirt that matched the crates that we were, How many people have ever used Rent-A-Crate? I mean, that is like a serious money-making, only in America, that's a loot, they rent crates. You pack them, you unload the crates, and you give them back. And they just rent crates, they deliver crates. And dollies. I mean, it's a great business. You're renting boxes, basically, that you're going to reuse. So, because I was on the move team, I became a source of information. Eugene, tell me about the new shuttle that goes between the new building and the train stations. Eugene, how do I pack the artwork on my wall? Eugene, I became a source of information. Again, it was an opportunity to talk to people. And of course, the fashionable orange shirt makes you very obvious. Very obvious. I probably won't be wearing that until Halloween, if ever. Okay, and one of the things that we had to do, and you would think this is intuitive, right? How do you pack a crate? We had to actually show people how to do this. And the funny thing is that the first thing they said, when you're showing people how to pack the crate, the way they come is, they stack them in each other, they're nestable, all right? And they come on a dolly, so it's 4 on a dolly and the 4 crates. They said, please, make sure you tell people, take the crate off the dolly, take them all off, and then put 1 on, fill it up. What people were doing is they'd have the stack of 4, they'd fill the top one, and then they couldn't get it out because it would compress the air out of the other 4, and it would just, they had to unpack it, and we had to tell it. And I didn't think of that. I mean, I would have probably done the same thing. But whenever I had an opportunity, I said, do you have your crates? Yes. Please make sure you take them all off the dolly first and then pack them up. No more than 4 on a, and people would say, they would say, Eugene, come help me with this crate. All right? Little things. Sporting opportunities in your firms. Now, I don't know if you can read this. This is a beautiful trophy that I have on my desk. In fact, I have it situated so that anybody passing my office will see that trophy. It looks quite nice, right? You would think it was for some great sporting achievement, right? Everyone nod yes. Okay. Can anyone make out what it says on the inscription? Dead last. That is the trophy for the charitable NCAA pool. And I was the one that was dead last this year. And it's like, I am totally on board with having, some people might be, it's embarrassing. Well, see, that's me, I'm shy. I like this kind of stuff. And so it says Latham & Watkins, 2000, and the number changes, 2014, NC2A pools dead last. And on the bottom of this plaque are all the previous people that had it dead last. In fact, the guy I got it from had it 2 years in a row. And it's like, it's an opportunity, it's something. And some people have walked by and say, Eugene, what's this for? And they look at it and they say, dead last. And they get a chuckle out of it. Okay, fine, people get a chuckle out of it. But it shows who we are. And it creates, I don't know, maybe a sense of joy a little bit. And what might be somebody can get a chuckle out of that, okay, I'll take advantage of it. I'll take that. Always be looking for the value-added opportunity. I come out of a consulting background, so you know what that means? I do consultant speak, and value-added opportunity is one of them. In fact, we talk about what else can I do for my client? When you deliver something, I always ask, does this meet your need? Do you need anything else? Is there any follow-up I can do? What else can you offer them? Are there other ancillary library or information services that you can offer? If they want A, maybe you need to monitor about A. For example, I have an attorney who writes on what's called the economic substance doctrine. And I gave her these articles, and then she said, oh, Eugene, I'm also doing some work on this other subject called inversion. So now, anything about inversion, anything about economic substance, she gets. I monitor these things. I work with our business development group, and we have a business group, a business practice that deals with hospitality, gaming, and leisure. Now, when you work in and when you do research in hospitality, gaming, and leisure, you get some very interesting journals. I get lodging journals delivered to my home or to my office, but more importantly, I get casino journal. Okay, and I'm always looking for pieces about the business of casinos. I mean, it has nothing to do with the gambling aspect, but it's the business of casinos. And there was something in March, little-known casino innovations. And it was just a little piece, and it talks about how the little things that we do, like giving an extra article, presenting something in the way that is most useful to people will remember. It says, and this author, I'll read it for you verbatim. It goes, my final little-known casino innovations may be my personal favorite. It is the little yellow plastic toy duck that graces the amenities basket in the hotel bathrooms at Chick-Chansey, wherever that is. You might think of it as not only goofy, but an unnecessary expense. Now, I'm not saying you should all go buy little rubber duckies, but she says, yet the hotel manager told me nothing at Chuksaki, I guess it is, Chuksaki, the wonderful rooms, the lavish VIP entertainment, nothing gets as much guest response as the little yellow duck. All right? How much do these things cost? $2, $3? They have this beautiful casino, and everybody remembers the little duck. It's the little things that we do as information professionals that matter. What else is important to my client? What other industries? What other companies? What other fill in the blank? All right? What are my client's preferences when doing research? In fact, one of my attorneys, he's a corporate and securities attorney, and when he asks me for, Eugene, get me the packet on company X, I know what the packet is, okay? And it's great because now we have such a relationship. It's like, okay, I'll get you the packet. It's a little thing, but it tells me that I'm in tune with what he's looking for. What else can I keep my eye on? Half of what we do is just being aware of our business, being aware of our profession, being aware of our client's business, our client's profession, etc. So, now, there's a lot to do here, okay? And there's a lot we can do in outreach. And I want to encourage you to let your vendors help you. Let your vendors help you with outreach opportunities. And I know that the relationship between a library and an library or information center and its vendors can be sub-optimized. That's the word I'm looking for, sub-optimized. It can be kind of contentious. There's contracts, there's, we want this, you gotta buy that, you gotta do this, you gotta jump, It can be contentious. In the law, and I'm talking about the law environment, I'm fortunate because I have what we call library relations people. These are individuals, they don't work on the contract side. I mean, they come in after, everybody's negotiated the contract, all the management types, and then they say, okay, this is what you've got, let's see how we use it. Okay? So, vendors can help, and it can be contentious, but the more you can partner with them, the more opportunities that you can create to do a couple of things. Use the vendor's product. How many people's contracts are more going flat rate? I mean, like a lot of our large vendor contracts, it's flat rate. So your firms, your companies are paying the freight anyways. The more you can get the product into people's hands, the cheaper the per use cost. Okay? So you'll get them to use the vendor's product, you can interact with people about the product, and then increased use of the product will often reduce the per unit cost or the per use cost because more things are going flat rate contract. That's just the nature of our business. Read, read, and read some more. Read again. Read the press and the professional journals as they relate to the profession of librarianship. You know, I mentioned, you know, the AALL Spectrum, there's the SLA publications. Read those. Be seen reading them. Half of what we do is not only doing it, but be seen doing it. Okay? The trade press in your discipline. Like in the law, one of the things that I look at is the American Lawyer. I also look at the Chicago Daily Law Bulletin, those things. The press as it relates to my industry in my market. The scholarly press in your discipline. Now sometimes it's in the law it's a bit much, even for me. But try it. Become familiar with what are some of the key journals, periodicals, that sort of thing. The business press. So not only do we have to be able to talk professionally as librarians, as information professionals, but we also have to be able to talk as business people because, and as I said, be seen doing this, the more you talk like a business person and then integrate that with your professional research and librarianship skills, the better off you'll be as a librarian or information professional. One of the things, what's rule number 2 of Eugene's rules of lunch? Does anyone remember?
Free lunch.
Free is good, and remember, refuse a free meal. That's right. Lunch or snack can help. People need refreshment during the day. They're either going to get it at lunch or during the day. People need a break, okay? Why not get it in your library or your information center? Remember the candy jar. Now, I'm not saying you lay on a 7-course meal of, you know, beef Wellington, but you know, there's things you can do. The candy jar is one. Food and drink naturally lubricates everything. I mean, half the fun of coming to conferences like this is how many free meals are we going to be getting these next few days? All right? That's salud. And of course, I would be remiss if I said you should make sure you for those in the legal division, the Bloomberg B&A breakfast on Monday morning. Vendors here can help. Okay? If you partner with them, if you show that you care, if you show that, man, I want to get your product into these people's hands, it's not that you're all, you know, it's not always gimme. It's like, hey, we're paying for this. I want to get it in people's hands. All right? Even if it doesn't have food and drink involved, a little diversion always helps. How many people do National Library Weeks type of stuff? Okay, that's a little great.
It's a cart going by.
Oh, okay, thank you. I thought that was like, you know, my cue. In some of the Latham and Watkins office, they have the putt-putt green. You know, they set up the putt-putt green in the, I mean, I'm not very good at that kind of stuff, but, you know, a little creativity, talking to people, you know, you look at your public libraries. What are they doing for National Library Week? And maybe take some schooling from that. And then, as always, never underestimate the value of a good baked good, all right? Homemade or not. And on Fridays in my firm, we have bagels and donuts from this one bakery, and everybody goes and has bagels and donuts on Friday. I think, you know, as part of the move, the main question that was asked, will we still have bagels and donuts on Friday? Nobody really cared. Well, they did care to a certain extent about the location. It was like, are we still going to have bagels and donuts? Will we have a place for bagels and donuts? I swear, if there was no bagels and donuts on Friday, there would be wholesale revolt. You know? Okay. People new to your industry. I love making... Now, how many people have heard them say to you, oh, don't make a fuss over me. I don't like a fuss. How many people have heard that? People say, oh, don't make a fuss over me. Okay. Liar! Liar. Everybody likes to make a fuss. Have a fuss made over them. All right? Even me, as shy as I am. New people, new to your business, new to your industry, are key. I'll tell you, I learned this in library school. The professor said, do not skimp on youth services in your library. Do not skimp on youth services. Now, he's talking in the public context. And we said, why? He said, let me tell you. Youth services is the key to your library's longevity because You have a young person now, 5, 6, 7 years old. They get a good experience of library now. When they're 30, 40, and whatever, they will vote for the bond issue. They will vote for the levy because they will remember what it was like when they were young and how good of an experience they had with library, and they'll want their children to have it. When I was in the medical library, when I worked part-time, I made a big deal over residents, med students, because I knew they were going to be running places like this. I wanted them to have a good experience of library now, because I knew that, like, one day when I'm, fucked in an old coffin, or when I'm in the coffin, there's going to be a librarian there. I want them to have access to those same sort of resources. This is what I tell my summer associates. This is what I tell my first years. And I make no bones about it. I don't hide the fact. I say, you are going to be running places like this in the future. It's my job to give you a good experience of library now, because when you're the managing partner, when you're the office director, when you're the practice group head, you will say, when I was a summer, we had a librarian, we had resources, we had trained professionals. We still need these things. Why? Why should we make a fuss over the new people? Because we are? We are the trustees of our profession. We are the trustees of our profession. Enough said about that. It is 1:10. I'm right on schedule. I'm going to leave you with 2 quotes. The first one is, a good plan, vigorously executed now, right now, is far better than a perfect plan executed next week. All right? Be creative. Try something. What we do as library professionals, it's not surgery. And I don't mean to deprecate either what we do or surgery. But it's not like when you're in surgery, when a doctor's in surgery, it's like, well, let's try this and see what happens. We're not working in that kind of environment. We can take a chance. We can try something. Okay, if it doesn't work, what have we gained? If we try something and it doesn't work, what have we gained? We've gained experience. We have added to the body of wisdom that is in our organization. Okay? And my goal for this session is, it's not to tell you what to do, or to tell you how to do it, but to sort of impress what needs to be done. And then your own creativity, the creativity that comes, that is the wellspring of your professionalism, will tell you how to do it. Take a chance. You don't have to have the perfect outreach program now. You don't have to have the perfect outreach program next week. But we are always going to be on the road, on the path together. Does anybody know where these 2 quotes came from? Anybody? Any guesses? Any guesses? I'll take all-comers. Any guesses? Anybody from the military library? Any military librarians here? Anybody?
In general.
He's a general. Very good. This man. Now, whatever you might think of him as sort of a human being and as a military tactician, he took a chance. He took a risk. Be daring. Be bold in your librarianship, which sort of sounds like a contradiction in terms. But this is my hope for you now, that you go out these doors and think about it, ponder it. Do a great work, because that's what we are all about. Because we are all the trustees of our profession. My friends, my colleagues, it has been my great pleasure, my great honor. We are at 1:10. I'm open to whatever you got to say now. You might stand here. What time is our official close time?
1:15.
We've got 5 minutes, so if people want to share experiences, want to sit in kibitz, that's great. It has been my pleasure to be with you. I wish you a good rest of the conference.
Thank you so much, Eugene. I would let everyone know there's a previous version of his deck on the online planner, and if you need anything specifically, I'm sure Eugene would send it to you.
Questions and comments? There's my contact information. You can find me there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Thank you so much for joining us. Once more, Eugene.
That one didn't go.